Yo, what's up? Small ball on a Wednesday. We're live. Okay, big show today. I'm gonna notify the world that we're live. As I do that, it's good to be back. We were off yesterday. Playoffs started. A lot of stuff to talk about. Okay, we have our bracket to talk about. So far, so good. Pretty hot start. Very hot start. Very hot start. Now it's like a little bit deeper in, and we're still doing pretty well. But yesterday, all of our teams won, so that's good. Some stuff to talk about regarding some more brackets that I previewed last show. I'm gonna try to keep this one short. I don't know when Yankees Indians is going to resume play. Right now, it's in a rain delay. I'm also mad tired. So I don't really have the energy for a long show, but it is what it is. Pardon this stain on my shirt. It's water, so sometimes when you're drinking water, you spill a little bit. It is what it is. Why did I not change my shirt? That I don't really have an answer for. But like I said, it is what it is. So, as I hear notify the world that we are live, there we go, bang. So the playoffs started yesterday. All right, so we have kind of a twofold show today where I want to talk about what I'm thinking going forward and some things that I saw yesterday and in today's games that some things I liked, some things I didn't. So here we go. First thing I want to say. And I feel like it should be obvious. I really do. I feel like this should be obvious. We're in the playoffs right now, okay? Which means that, and every playoff game is huge, obviously. But 3-game series, okay? Obviously, these games are massive, okay? Now, I don't know if I missed something. There were a lot of rule changes this year. Some are permanent going forward. Some are specific to this year. But I don't remember seeing in the rule changes a rule now forbidding people from bunting. Did I miss that? Because I don't remember reading that. And it feels to me, I'm not sure these managers are aware. You're allowed to bunt every once in a while. You're allowed to do it. Why are they not doing it? I don't know. And it's kind of ridiculous. We're talking Astros Twins, okay? The Astros are the underdogs. Yes, I picked them, but they're the 6th seed playing a 3 seed on the road. Tie ball game. Runner on first, nobody out. Top of the 8th. So, we're thinking, right, runs might be a nice thing to get, right? In that situation. That could help, right? And we have a shift with Michael Brantley at the plate. Third baseman is about 50 feet from third, and about 20 feet behind the baseline. And we're talking guy on first, nobody out. So I'm just thinking maybe a bunt, maybe down the third base line, maybe because first and second, nobody out in a tie game in the 8th inning of a 3-game series, game 1, on the road, in a 1-1 game when nobody's hitting, with Alex Bregman due up next, I kind of feel like that's an option, right? We could maybe think about that, but no. Not even a consideration. Michael Brantley did not even look down for a sign. So I don't know what's going on there. Like, my dad pointed this out. If he had hit, right, so obviously, like, he's up there, right? And he could bunt. And obviously, like, an argument to be made is, like, he doesn't know how to bunt, which is true. Like, sure, in that instance, like, if you can't do it, then don't. But, like, the main problem that I'm getting at is, like, why can't your 3-hitter, your best hitter, supposedly, be able to literally get a ball down to the left side of the field? But my dad stated, like, he's up there now to hit, right? They're not bunting. So what they want him to do is hit and hit the ball hard, right? Like, because that's the plan. So if he had hit a rocket line drive to center field for a single, would that be like a problem? Would that be like a disappointment? I don't think so. So why can't he just casually knock a little bunt down the third base line and set up first and second, nobody out in a tie game? Like, we've covered this already, but enough on that. That took a long time. Anyway, more on that game. So I predicted an Astros win over the Twins, which is odd for me because I've been very high on the Twins in years past, particularly this year. But what it came down to for me is the Astros both had the lowest strikeout total in Major League Baseball this year and the highest fielding percentage. And all of you people, obviously you analytics people think that fielding percentage is useless. Well, game one, the Astros put the ball in play, which they do better than anyone else. They put pressure on the Twins, and the Twins defense folded. A couple really, really bad defensive lapses. One of them, being an error by Jorge Polanco, and that ended up costing them the game. So, it came down to defense, and it came down to putting the ball in play, which I've said over and over again. This is why I think like a team like the Rays is severely overrated as a playoff contender or as a championship contender, because defense really is magnified in the postseason. I'm not exactly sure why. It just always seems like it comes down to who can make the plays and who can't. I mean, part of the reason is we got better hitters who are putting the ball in play more. Managers are a little bit more aggressive, I think, in the postseason. So, it's really, I think, a hurdle that is difficult to get over if you come into postseason play with a lackluster defense. And the Twins did, and it cost them, right? I think they're an extremely talented team. Kente Maeda and Jose Barrios, like, you can't really ask for too much more as far as what you throw out there on the mound. Lineup top to bottom is good, and they put the ball in play. Like, they don't strike out that much, but it came down to defense. Their defense burned them, and yeah, I mean, I think the Astros are a buttoned up team. Like, a lot of you might not want to hear that. They do the little things well. That's why I picked them to actually go to the championship series, right? Because in the playoffs, looking at all these averages, like, these 220s, 230s, averages on the Astros with OPSs in like the 600s or 700s, like, sure, that's not great. But in postseason play, it really comes down more to individual moments, you versus the pitcher. What can you do, right? Over a 162-game season, your stats are what they are. And in a finite moment, in one game in the postseason, I don't think a 220 hitter has a 22% chance of getting a hit, right? There are so many other factors, especially in the postseason, that, for good or for bad, that make your regular season stats really not all that reliable when you're trying to determine, what's going to happen. So another thing that I noticed, which is ridiculous, and it has to do with what I just talked about, is these players who are playing, they cannot hit the baseball. We have, today we had a Braves Reds game, 0-0, or 1-0 finish, but 0-0 into the 13th inning. Every game pretty much is like 1-0 until the 8th. The Yankees put on a show yesterday, and the A's had a nice little offensive showing today. 5 runs. I mean, it's nothing special, but most of these games are extremely low scoring. Now, yes, the aces are on the mound for the most part, right? Not even, right? A lot of teams didn't go with their ace in game 1. I mean, there's some strategy involved here. Some of them weren't ready to go; they had just pitched, right? But it's not even that. Like, they're not even really getting to the bullpens. They're not really even competitive in a lot of these at bats. And I think the reason why is everyone is up there trying to put the ball over the fence. And I've said this for years. That's all well and good when you're playing the Orioles 19 times in a season, right? Over the regular season, right? Like a guy like Gary Sanchez, like, not to, I don't want to use him as an example really, because he's like a whole nother extreme. But, even a guy like a Miguel Sano, okay, for the Twins, like, you can put up some pretty solid numbers in the regular season when half the games are against losing teams. They're throwing 5 starters, right? It's a 5-man rotation, sometimes more. In the postseason, it's like a 3-man rotation. So you're not facing any 4s and 5s in the postseason, and you're only facing the cream of the crop out of the bullpen. In the regular season, you're facing 1 through 5, you're facing 1 through 10 in the bullpen, and you're facing bad teams a lot of times. So guys like Miguel Sano, I don't want to, I don't want to rag on Miguel Sano, but they can put up numbers that look good, right? And that's not my whole point, but that's part of my point with analytics, is like, you're basing how a guy is going to do in a 3-game series against, let's say, Glasnow, Snell, and Morton under immense pressure in big spots on math that you're getting from games against the Orioles and the Tigers and the Dodgers. But what I'm getting at is, why are we trusting these stats to tell the story of what's going to happen in the 8th inning with a guy on third base in a big spot? Like, it's just really not. It's not comparable, I don't think. And I don't trust Miguel Sano with a guy on third, less than 2 outs in a big spot, right? I trust him to hit a couple big flies against the Orioles in August. So that's why I don't take a lot of stock in guys' stats in the regular season when I'm thinking about the postseason. However, my main point is that these teams do. These teams are basing their decisions off of numbers. And these numbers are not only flawed, because a lot of them are opinionated. People don't realize that WAR is an opinion. Every site that puts out WAR, wins above replacement, they determine what that means. Okay, it's not a stat. It's an opinion. I like stats that are precisely what they describe and what they say that they are. Like, how many hits you have is quite literally how many hits you have. And your earned run average is quite literally how many runs you give up per 9 innings. But WRC plus is somebody's opinion. So I don't care about that. I take all the stats, I put them together, I watch people play, and I make my own decisions for myself. And my decisions would not be to start a guy like Miguel Sano or hit a guy like Travis d'Arnaud fourth. Brian Snitker, who I like, has Travis d'Arnaud in the 4-hole this afternoon against Trevor Bauer. Like what? Like because his exit velocity was third in Major League Baseball, and he was like 0 for 6 today. Like perfect example. Like you're literally basing these lineups and such off of how hard a guy hit the ball over a 60-game season, primarily against losing teams. And now you throw him in there, a guy with a 1.7, and he has like a career 200 average, and you're approaching the game as if he is a 4-hitter, a cleanup hitter. I don't know what we're doing. But my main point is, I've said this a couple of times, my actual main point is that people don't know how to hit because these coaching staffs are trying to get them to hit the ball over the fence no matter the situation, no matter the pitcher. And when you're facing the ones on playoff teams, you can't do that. You're not going to score runs like that. And believe it or not, the Yankees, who 2018, 2019, I thought of as the opposite of what I'd like to see out of an offense, right? A severely all or nothing, home run or bust type lineup. I think they have arguably the most run creating ability of any team in the postseason right now. They look like a scrappy team compared to, a Dodgers or a Rays or a Twins, right? They look like a run creating team. And that's what it's going to take to win these games, right? You can't go up against Blake Snell and hit 3 home runs. Like, it's just not going to happen. So the teams that are able to make things happen on the base pass, create runs, put guys on base, that's who's gonna win these series. So another thing that I said coming into the playoffs was I talked about Shane Bieber. Okay. Now, I said he was overrated, but it's difficult for me to put this into words. I don't think, first of all, he's a bad pitcher. I think he's an average to slightly above average pitcher. Seriously. Like, I think he's slightly above average. I don't think he's even a good pitcher. Okay. And I'm not trying to say that, like, his dismal outing yesterday proves me right, because I didn't think he was going to do that badly yesterday. I'm not trying to say that I don't even think he's overperforming. And listen to me carefully, because here's what I mean. He is putting up these numbers because of his surroundings. Like, we don't see this a lot in baseball because it's such an individualized sport compared to a lot of the other team sports. But his catching tandem of Roberto Perez, Sandy Leon, the best pitching coaching staff in baseball, that's what's creating these numbers. And every single year we have like 3 Indians pitchers who all of a sudden are like Cy Young candidates, right? And we're like, where are these guys coming from? I'll tell you where they're coming from. Roberto Perez threw out 77% of runners this year, was top 5 in wild pitches allowed, and knows how to call baseball games. So watch the games, watch the Indians play. None of their pitchers have wow stuff. I mean, Roberto Perez turned Mike Clevenger from a spot starter into like a deadline trade piece. Like, so is Shane Bieber overrated? Yes, I thought he would produce because he still has Roberto Perez, but I did pick the Yankees to win the series. I thought they were going to win that game because it's Garrett Cole against Shane Bieber. Like, I don't think of them as the same level of pitcher. And Kyle Higashioka started yesterday. Garrett Cole has a 1 ERA with Higashioka behind the plate. So not that Kyle Higashioka is anywhere close to Roberto Perez, but my point is that we're coming into this game looking at it as a pitcher's duel. It's not a pitcher's duel. It's Garrett Cole against Roberto Perez in my eyes. So how does that play out in the series? I don't know, because Roberto Perez maybe had a bad game yesterday. I don't know. I mean, he didn't look like himself behind the plate. I mean, I know that's like a really distinctive thing to notice, but he looked a little bit lackadaisical, and I don't want to what's the word? I don't want to conflate anything, right? I don't want to make something that out of it that it's not, and I don't even know if that's fair to say. But my point is that we got to analyze this pitching staff because of their surroundings, right? Not because Shane Bieber and Aaron Savale and Zach Plesac are dominant starting pitchers. They're not. So going forward in the series, I think it's going to be a question of how much Roberto Perez has an impact on that pitching staff. Because the Yankees pitching staff has talent, and they don't really have a guy behind the plate that really helps them achieve what they're capable of achieving. So I think it's going to be, I think it's up to the catchers. I think it's up to who plays better behind the plate. With that said, little segue here. I want to give you guys my catcher's bracket. I've talked about this a couple times. Very interesting stuff. Colin Cowherd, my boy. I love his show. He does a quarterback bracket. So what he does when the playoffs start is he does his regular bracket, and then he takes each team's quarterback, puts their face on the bracket, and only picks the games based on their quarterback. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at every team's defensive catcher, right? So each team's catcher, what they do defensively. Now that is throwing, blocking, receiving, and let me change my frame here a little bit, and what they're able to do for a pitching staff. So here we go. Each series I'm only going to pick. Now I gave you my regular bracket, so I'm not picking based off of this, but I'm going to pick this bracket based on who I think is the better defensive catcher, and we're going to see how it plays out. So Rays, Blue Jays, okay? This is a tough one. I don't like either of these catchers. Mike Zunino, for a third year in a row, is top 5 in both wild pitches allowed and pass balls. His throwing, I mean, he has a strong throwing arm, but his throwing accuracy and release is not outstanding. Now, I do think he's good with the staff. I think he's very good with the staff. And he's going up against Danny Jansen. I think Danny Jansen has some talent defensively. I don't love what he does for a pitching staff. Obviously, this series already ended, so, I could just, make an argument for Zunino and pick him. But I think Danny Jansen's the better defensive catcher here. I obviously, coming into this, I know I'm going to get this one wrong because it already happened. But I'm going to pick Danny Jansen because he blocks significantly better than Zunino. He does not have as much talent as a thrower, but he's more accurate, slightly more accurate, and he has a quicker release. And I do think that he, in his youth, I mean, he's a young, inexperienced catcher. I think he's done a pretty good job. I mean, that's not really an excuse. We're basing it off of right now. But I do think that Danny Jansen, I would take him over Mike Zunino. So just based on the catchers, I would pick the Blue Jays over the Rays. And obviously, I'm already 0-1 because that's the Blue Jays lost the series. But I'm going to be fully honest with you guys, and I would take Danny Jansen. Now, Indians, Yankees. We have the tandem. Another thing, there's also such thing as catching tandems. Like a lot of teams go with 2 catchers. In a 3-game series, probably not. But if in a situation like this, especially with the Yankees, they are going with 2 catchers. So that's worth noting too. I mean, if there's multiple catchers playing, you have to look at that too. So Roberto Perez and Sandy Leon against Gary Sanchez and Kyle Higashioka. I don't think we really have a lot to say about that. Roberto Perez and Sandy Leon on to the next round. And then we have our Astros Twins series. So this series is already over as well. Easily the Astros, okay? And this was one of the main reasons why I picked the Astros, because the Twins no Mitch Garver, so they're going with Alex Avila, who is old and nothing special behind the plate, against Martin Maldonado, who's very talented and very good with the pitching staff. Very good with the pitching staff. He doesn't have really refined skills as far as his physical abilities. He's not an accurate thrower. He blocks average. I mean, he's an average blocker, and he receives well. I do think he's very good with the pitching staff, and I think that he's a playmaker. He makes a lot of plays that a lot of other catchers can't. I think that he messes up a lot of plays that some other catchers wouldn't. But I would easily take Martin Maldonado over Alex Avila, who is pretty much the bare minimum, when it comes to catchers, right? He doesn't do anything egregiously bad, but he doesn't really bring anything to the table defensively. And Mitch Garver, honestly, is even worse than Gary Sanchez. So had it been Mitch Garver, I would clearly take Maldonado as well. So Maldonado's on to the next round to face the winner of White Sox A's. So we have Yasmani Grandal against Sean Murphy. This one is really difficult to pick because I think Sean Murphy is the next great defensive catcher in baseball. But he's young. He hasn't played much. I don't love what he's done with the pitching staff. I mean, I like it, but I don't love it. Yasmani Grandal, very difficult to evaluate as a catcher because I don't love him as a thrower. I don't like him at all as a blocker, but he receives extremely well. He's very good, but not great with the pitching staff. I'm actually going to take Sean Murphy. So I picked the White Sox in the series, but I'm going to take Sean Murphy. I think Sean Murphy is the next great defensive catcher in baseball, and Yasmani Grandal is very inconsistent in managing games. And when he was with the Brewers, those staffs were downright awful. And I don't love him as a thrower or a blocker, and I think in the postseason particularly, when there's more commotion on the base paths, I think that becomes a little bit even more important. So I would take Sean Murphy, who has shown really, really good things as a game caller, and obviously in terms of his physical abilities, I mean, throwing, catching, blocking, he is the next, great defensive catcher. Now National League, we have Will Smith of the Dodgers against Omar Narvaez of the Brewers. I'm going with Omar Narvaez. Will Smith is pretty good with the staff, not great. He's not a good thrower of the baseball. He is not a good blocker. He receives all right. He's an offensive catcher. I don't love him defensively. Narvaez is great with the staff, an excellent blocker. Throwing and receiving is fringy, but an excellent blocker and really good with the staff that is not that talented and has performed pretty well this year after bringing in Narvaez from the Mariners. So obviously that would be a complete upset. I picked the Dodgers in the series, but I'm sending Omar Narvaez on to the next round. Cardinals, Padres, really not much of a contest. We got Yadier Molina against Austin Nola / Francisco Mejia. Really no contest. And Yadi's a shell of what he once was physically, but his mental game, carries him over the vast majority of catchers in this league. Even if he doesn't have what he once did physically, and he still has a lot of it, the things that he does to a pitching staff are remarkable. And I've said this many, many times. These Cardinals pitchers that we talk about as breakout stars, Carlos Martinez, Jack Flaherty, and Dakota Hudson, and all these guys, right? Miles Mikolas. They're not all that talented. They don't have wow stuff. They have Mike Shildt and Yadier Molina. So similar situation to the Indians. Yadier Molina next round. Then we have our 3-6 game, which is Marlins and the Cubs. I really liked what I saw this year from Chad Wallach of the Marlins. Now he's facing Wilson Contreras. Wilson Contreras is the most underrated defensive catcher in baseball. A lot of people see him as the worst defensive catcher in baseball, partially because he's outstanding offensively. So people, compare his defense to his offense, which is not fair. Also, his physical skills are really not all that good. He does not throw well or accurately. He does not receive well at all. And his blocking is subpar at best, right? So I don't think he's a great defensive catcher, but he is really, really, compared to his physical skills, his mental skills are miles ahead. And I'm not going to say he's outstanding for a pitching staff, but he is very good. So, he doesn't have the physical skills. I think that's going to cost him a little bit maybe in the playoffs. But he is good with the staff, and he's very cerebral, and a lot of Cubs pitchers benefit from him behind the plate. So I will take, though, Chad Wallach, who has blocked, honestly, his blocking numbers, I'm honestly not sure what they are. But in watching him, and I watched a lot of Marlins games down the stretch, he is an outstanding blocker of the baseball. His arm is not strong, but he is very accurate. He has a very quick release. And he's athletic. He can pretty much throw on any pitch. Receiving is average. So I'll take Chad Wallach. And then finally, the 2-7 game Braves-Reds. Travis d'Arnaud. And the Reds is tough because I didn't know if they're going to go with Tyler Stevenson, Curt Casali, Tucker Barnhart. They're going right now with a tandem of, it looks like, Curt Casali and Tucker Barnhart. And I think that definitely outlasts Travis d'Arnaud. I'm not sure. I was trying to think for a sec who I like better between Barnhart and Casali, because traditionally I like Barnhart a lot, especially as a game caller. But Casali played extremely well today. He deserves a ton of credit for Bauer's strong outing. I'm going to give a lot of that credit to Bauer, of course, but Curt Casali had an excellent game today, called a beautiful game. And these are things that people, even serious baseball fans, overlook, right? That's not something that you're really looking for, generally speaking, when watching a playoff game, is what the catcher is doing to improve the way their pitchers pitch. But I do. I'm with that stuff. I pay attention to that stuff. Not that none of you do. I'm sure some of you do, but the vast majority of people probably not where their focus is. And he had a marvelous game behind the plate today. Not really physically. Physically too, yes. I'm not taking anything away from what he did. His blocking was ridiculous today. He didn't have a lot of opportunities because there weren't a lot of guys on base. But his blocking, he had one block that was just absolutely off the charts. But what really, really, helped Bauer and helped that team stay in that game without any run support was Curt Casali behind the plate. So long story short, I'm taking Curt Casali / Tucker Barnhart / maybe even Tyler Stevenson at some point in the postseason, if they advance to the next round, or not, over Travis d'Arnaud, who's really nothing special behind the plate. Now, I'm going to try to wrap this up kind of quickly. Danny Jansen against Roberto Perez. Again, no contest. Danny Jansen, I think, has potential. He's limited. His ceiling is limited. He calls a nice game. He blocks very well. And, he's kind of an average thrower at best, average receiver at very best. So I will take Roberto Perez over Danny Jansen. And then we have our matchup of Martin Maldonado and Sean Murphy. Now, again, tough. I like what Sean Murphy is doing. It's really, it's tough. I don't know how to analyze him yet because I think he's going to be tremendous. But so far, he's been up and down. I'm going to take him. Here's why. Because Maldonado is extremely inconsistent. Probably the least consistent catcher in Major League Baseball defensively. Sean Murphy is as well, but his ceiling is higher. He's shown me, when Maldonado wows me, it's physical. When Murphy wows me, it's physical and game calling. And Maldonado is a good game caller, but he's not quite Sean Murphy. So I'm taking Sean Murphy because at his best, he's better than Maldonado, and at his worst, he's better than Maldonado. They're both inconsistent. So on a given day, Maldonado could definitely be better, but I think he has a higher ceiling and floor. I'm not talking about down the road. I'm talking about right now, tomorrow. Who's going to do better? I'm going to go with Sean Murphy. So our ALCS is between Roberto Perez / Sandy Leon and Sean Murphy. National League, we have Omar Narvaez going up against Yadier Molina. Postseason play, I'm taking Molina. These are difficult lineups to navigate. You need a guy, cerebral guy who knows how to call games for sure. Narvaez is good. He's no Yadier Molina, so Molina is on to the NLDS. And then finally, we have, I don't know why I said finally, but next we have our matchup of Curt Casali / Tucker Barnhart against Chad Wallach. Honestly, I loved what Chad Wallach did this year, but after watching today's game and a couple Red games down the stretch, honestly, their catchers, I think, I know I talk about catchers a lot and I talk about their importance a lot, but their catchers, I think, deserve so much of the credit for getting them into the playoffs. Coming from behind, they did not have a good start to the season, the Reds, that is. So their catchers, I think, are a large part of that. And after today's game, I got to go with the Reds catchers because Curt Casali was terrific. I thought Tucker Barnhart was the better catcher. Excuse me. Now I don't even know. And Chad Wallach I like what I see from him, but he's limited, in terms of his experience, in terms of his throwing ability, and receiving, honestly. So I'm going to go with the Reds. So now we have our championship series. So we got Roberto Perez and Sandy Leon against Sean Murphy. And I think this one's pretty simple. Like, at his best, Sean Murphy is outstanding. Roberto Perez is consistently outstanding. So you're not going to get, a rookie, rookie mistakes out of Roberto Perez and Sandy Leon. You're just not going to get that. They're just outstanding. And Sean Murphy, I think, is prone, especially in the postseason and the bubble against good teams. I think he might make one too many or a few too many mistakes. So I'm going to go Roberto Perez. And I keep saying Sandy Leon. Realistically, he's not going to play that much. But I think it's just, I think they have the two best defensive catchers in baseball, so it's worth noting. And then, in the National League, in the NLCS, we have our Curt Casali / Tucker Barnhart against Yadier Molina. This is a very tough pick. Because we have Yadi, who obviously we know what he's able to do as a game caller. We know what he's able to do from an intangible perspective. And then we have Casali and Barnhart, who are younger, more athletic, can do more physically, I think, at this point. Maybe. I don't even know. I'm going to take Yadier Molina. Similar situation to the American League. He's just more consistent, not prone to mistakes, which obviously mistakes, especially behind the plate, are magnified in the postseason. And we talked about defense and its importance in the postseason. So I'm going to take Molina because he's more reliable. He gives me more confidence if I'm a pitcher. And he has navigated these lineups and these situations more than any other catcher in the game. So I think that's probably true. So our World Series matchup is going to be Roberto Perez against Sandy Leon. Against Yadier Molina. So Roberto Perez and Sandy Leon against Yadier Molina. Now, it's tough to discredit Yadi, but at this point in their careers, I think Roberto Perez physically has more left in the tank than Molina. Molina is, a remarkable game caller, but Roberto Perez is just a tick below, and he's a better thrower at this point in his career. Blocking, I think, is pretty similar. Receiving, I think, is Roberto Perez is a really, really good receiver of the baseball. I think it's a wash. I mean, I think maybe a tick for Molina, but I think in a grueling, now with an extra series, I know it's short, but Molina's getting up there. It was 60 games in 67 days. The Cardinals played more double headers than any team in baseball this year. Second highest percentage of games played as doubleheaders in any team in Major League history. So not that makes him any less of a catcher, per se, but I just think, by way of example, he's older. I think he's limited athletically at this point in his career. So I think in my catcher's bracket, I have the Cleveland Indians beating the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series. Now, these are both teams that I have losing in the first round. So what does this mean? Not sure. We're going to find out. And we have our strikeouts bracket to come, but that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, recommend, all that good stuff if you feel inclined to do so. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love to do a show tomorrow. It's very possible. We didn't do one yesterday. 2 days in a row. I mean, it's a little time off in between is usually good, but in the playoffs, especially, a lot of series are probably going to end today and tomorrow. We will see. Maybe we'll do a show. Maybe we won't. Not sure. But I'll notify the Instagram and all that. So have a healthy, happy, and safe rest of your Wednesday. And we'll be back probably either, if not tomorrow, probably Friday. So thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Take care. Watch some baseball, hopefully, if you're interested. And have a good one. Peace.